I was invisible at my sister's engagement party for 2 hours, standard procedure in my family. Then my uncle flew in from San Francisco, hugged me, and casually asked how I was enjoying the $1.5 million house I bought. The entire room went silent. My parents' champagne glasses froze midair. My sister's hand, the one showing off her 2-carat ring, started trembling. Because they had no idea I owned a house. They didn't know about the patents, the director title, or the $3.2 million net worth I'd quietly built while they ignored me for 8 years. If you're interested in this topic, hit the like button, subscribe, and type interested in the comments. And I will give you a heart. Let me set the scene for you, because context matters when your entire family dynamic implodes in front of 200 people at a luxury ballroom. The Riverside Ballroom. Chandeliers dripping crystal. Champagne flowing like someone had tapped a fountain of liquid gold. 200 guests dressed to impress, all gathered to celebrate my sister Brooke's engagement to a man whose entire personality could be summarized as has a stable job and remembered to propose. And Brooke, my older sister, the golden child, the favorite, the one who could sneeze and my parents would frame the tissue, had been displaying her engagement ring for the past hour like she was a museum curator, and that 2-carat platinum setting was the Hope diamond itself. I'm not exaggerating. She'd literally been holding her hand at specific angles to catch the light, rotating her wrist like she was conducting a symphony of sparkle. And every single time, she'd launch into the proposal story. The beach at sunset. The violinist he'd hired. The way he got down on one knee in the sand. How the ring was exactly 3 months of his salary, which apparently is the gold standard for proving love. 15 retellings. I counted. And my parents, God, my parents, they ate it up every single time like it was the first time they'd heard it. Asking questions about the jeweler, about the cut and clarity of the diamond like they'd suddenly become gemologists. Nodding seriously when Brooke explained it was a princess cut with VS1 clarity. My mother actually had tears in her eyes. Tears. Over a ring. And me? I was standing near the bar, nursing a glass of Pinot Noir that had gone from cold to room temperature in my hand, offering congratulations when socially required, essentially operating as human wallpaper. Invisible. Which, honestly, was pretty standard for any Reed family gathering. Here's what you need to understand about being the overlooked child in a family: it's not dramatic. It's not loud. Nobody sits you down and says, "We've decided you're less important." It's 1,000 tiny moments that add up over years until you realize you've been edited out of your own family story. It's your mother asking about your sister's new apartment and cutting you off when you try to mention your research. It's your father remembering every detail of your sister's promotion but forgetting what company you work for. It's standing in a room full of people who share your DNA and feeling more alone than if you were actually by yourself. So there I was, invisible as always, watching Brooke's 16th retelling of the proposal story to a cluster of aunts who were cooing like she'd just announced the second coming, when Uncle James walked in. Uncle James isn't just my father's younger brother. He's a venture capitalist who made an absolute fortune backing tech startups in the late 90s, the kind of money that means he flies first class without thinking about it and considers San Francisco expensive but manageable. More importantly, he was the only family member who'd bothered to stay connected with me over the past 8 years despite living 3,000 miles away. The only one who called on my birthday. The only one who asked about my work and actually listened to the answer. The only one who acted like I existed. "Sorry I'm late, everyone," James announced, making his way through the crowd with that easy confidence successful people carry like a second skin. He hugged Brooke, congratulated her fiancé with the kind of enthusiasm you deploy at parties, then turned to me with a genuine, warm embrace that made my chest tight. "Sophia, God, it's good to see you." He pulled back, studying my face with actual interest, actual care. "You look incredible. How's life in that $1.5 million house you purchased? Is the neighborhood everything you hoped?" The conversation around us didn't just pause. It died. Instantly. Completely. Like someone had hit a kill switch on all human sound in a 10-foot radius. Brooke's hand, the one that had been displaying that ring in constant motion for an hour, froze mid-gesture, literally stopped in the air like she'd been caught in a photograph. My mother's champagne flute halted halfway to her lips, suspended there like gravity had malfunctioned. My father's face drained of color so fast I actually watched it happen, watched the blood leave his cheeks like someone had opened a valve. "James," my father whispered, his voice tight and strangled with confusion, "what house?" I took a slow sip of my wine, letting the moment stretch, savoring it in a way I probably shouldn't have but absolutely did. 8 years. 8 years of being overlooked, dismissed, treated like the family afterthought while Brooke's every minor achievement became a production worthy of Broadway and a standing ovation. And now, finally, the truth was coming to light. Not because I'd announced it. Not because I'd demanded attention. But because Uncle James, bless him, had assumed my parents actually knew basic facts about my life. "The house on Sterling Heights," James said casually, accepting a champagne flute from a passing server like he'd just mentioned the weather. "The one Sophia bought in 2016. Gorgeous craftsman style. That mountain view? Spectacular. I stayed there last time I was in town." Brooke found her voice first, and when she did, it came out shrill with disbelief, sharp enough to cut glass. "Sophia doesn't own a house. She rents that apartment near the university." "I rented that apartment," I corrected calmly, keeping my voice level and conversational, "for about 2 years during my PhD program. Then I bought the house on Sterling Heights. That was 8 years ago." My father's champagne flute tilted dangerously in his grip, liquid sloshing toward the rim. "What are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the 5-bedroom craftsman I purchased for $1.2 million in June 2016, I said evenly, like I was explaining something very simple to someone who wasn't quite keeping up. "The one that's now valued at approximately $1.5 million according to recent market comparables." The numbers seemed to reverberate through our family cluster like a shockwave. You could see it hit each person individually. My mother's hand flew to her throat in that gesture women make when they're genuinely shocked. My father looked like he'd been struck by lightning, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. Brooke's perfectly practiced party smile, the one she'd been wearing all night, crumbled completely, collapsed in on itself like a building being demolished from the inside. "That's impossible," my mother breathed, the word barely making it past her lips. "Where would you possibly get over $1 million? I put down $240,000 and financed the rest," I explained, my tone still calm, still matter of fact. "Though I paid off the mortgage 6 years ago." James nodded approvingly, jumping in like the supportive uncle he'd always been. "Smart move. Sophia's always been brilliant with money. That signing bonus from Helix Pharmaceuticals? She put the entire amount toward the mortgage principal. Paid off $960,000 in 2 years. Signing bonus?" My father said faintly, like the words didn't quite make sense in that order. "What signing bonus?" "From when I started at Helix," I said. "They offered me $180,000 as a signing bonus to leave my postdoc position. I accepted and used it all to pay down the mortgage. You know that sound a balloon makes when air escapes really fast? That's what Brooke's next words sounded like. You got a $180,000 signing bonus?" Her voice was strangled, compressed, like someone was squeezing her throat. "That's standard for senior positions in pharmaceutical research," I explained, still keeping that educational tone, like I was a professor and they were students who'd missed several lectures. "My current annual compensation is $375,000, including bonuses and stock options." The silence that followed wasn't just quiet. It was absolute. It was the kind of silence that happens when everyone's brain simultaneously short-circuits. Someone's champagne flute actually slipped from their fingers and shattered on the marble floor, the crystal exploding in a burst of sound that made several guests turn to look. My mother looked like she might faint. Her face had gone pale, her eyes unfocused. My father was staring at me like I'd just announced I was actually an alien. $375,000, my father repeated mechanically, his voice flat with shock. A year. Base salary is $280,000, I clarified, because accuracy matters. Annual performance bonuses average around $60,000, and my stock options vested this year at approximately $35,000. James smiled, that proud uncle smile that made my chest warm. Sophia's being modest. Those stock options? She's sitting on another $420,000 in unvested equity. Plus the patent royalties. Patent royalties? My mother whispered the words like they were in a foreign language she was trying to translate. I hold 11 patents in oncology drug delivery systems, I said. They generate approximately $95,000 annually in licensing fees. Brooke's hand, still frozen in midair with that engagement ring, began to tremble. Actually shake. And suddenly that 2-carat ring she'd been displaying for an hour looked very, very small. My parents stood completely still, 2 statues in expensive clothes, trying to process information that clearly didn't fit their understanding of reality, trying to reconcile the daughter they'd ignored with the successful woman standing in front of them. I don't understand, my mother said, and her voice cracked right down the middle. You're a pharmaceutical researcher. How can you possibly afford all this? I'm the director of oncology research at Helix Pharmaceuticals, I corrected gently, softly. I oversee a department of 47 researchers. We're currently in phase 3 trials for a drug that could revolutionize pancreatic cancer treatment. James pulled out his phone, scrolling through something with the ease of someone who'd done this before. Actually, Sophia's work was featured in Nature Medicine last month. The article called her research groundbreaking and potentially Nobel-worthy. Nobel Prize, my father said hoarsely, the words barely making it out. It's early to talk about that, I said, genuinely uncomfortable with the speculation because I'm a scientist and we don't count our discoveries before they're replicated. But the research is promising. If the phase 3 trials succeed, we could save thousands of lives annually. Here's where Brooke's defense mechanisms kicked in, where she tried to turn this around, to make herself the victim. Why didn't you tell us about any of this? Her voice came out sharp, defensive, accusatory. I did tell you, I said quietly, and this was the part that hurt, the part that had been hurting for years. Multiple times. You didn't listen. That's not true, my father protested weakly, but you could hear the doubt in his voice, the dawning realization that maybe it was true. James set down his phone with deliberate care. Actually, it is true. I have the emails. November 2016, Sophia told you about the house. Dad, you said she was being financially irresponsible. Mom, you asked if she was sure she could handle the maintenance costs. April 2018, Sophia mentioned the mortgage payoff at Easter dinner. You asked if that meant she was unemployed. We didn't say that, my mother said weakly, but there was no conviction behind it. You did, I confirmed, my voice steady. You assumed that paying off a mortgage meant I'd lost my job, not that I'd been financially successful enough to eliminate the debt early. The distinction seemed to physically wound my mother. Her eyes filled with tears that spilled over, running mascara down her cheeks. My father's jaw clenched so hard I could see the muscle jumping, see the tension radiating through his entire body. Uncle James continued as if nothing unusual was happening, as if he hadn't just detonated a bomb in the middle of my sister's engagement party. Sophia, have you made a decision about the lake house investment? That property was stunning. What lake house? My father demanded, and his voice had gone sharp now, aggressive, like he was trying to regain control of a situation that had completely escaped him. There's a luxury property available on Lake Serenity, James explained conversationally. 6 bedrooms, private dock, 3 acres. Sophia is considering purchasing it as a vacation rental property. Why would Sophia buy a vacation rental? Brooke asked, and her voice had gone thin now, stretched tight like wire about to snap. For income diversification, James said like this was Economics 101. She already owns 4 rental properties in addition to her primary residence. This would be her 6th property overall. The revelation hit like a second shockwave, like aftershocks following an earthquake. My mother actually swayed on her feet, her balance gone. My father grabbed her elbow to steady her, his grip tight enough that I saw her wince. Brooke looked like someone had physically slapped her across the face. For rental properties, my mother whispered, and I watched her trying to do the math, trying to understand a version of her daughter that didn't exist in her mental file. Small single-family homes in emerging neighborhoods, I said, keeping my tone educational, informative. I buy them below market value, update them, and rent them to young professionals. Average cash flow of about $1,800 per unit after all expenses. That's $7,200 a month, my father calculated automatically, his finance brain kicking in even through the shock. That's over $86,000 a year in rental income. Plus appreciation, James added helpfully. Those properties have increased in value by an average of 42% since Sophia purchased them. Her total real estate equity across all properties is approximately $2.1 million. The numbers kept landing like artillery shells, each one hitting with devastating precision. Brooke's engagement ring hand dropped to her side completely, forgotten, irrelevant. My parents stood frozen, two people trying to reconcile 8 years of assumptions with a reality they'd completely missed. $2 million in real estate, my father said slowly, carefully, like he was testing whether the words were real. That's just the real estate, James corrected, and I wanted to hug him and also maybe tell him to stop because this was getting brutal. Sophia's total net worth is closer to $3.2 million when you include her retirement accounts, investment portfolio, stock options, and liquid assets. $3 million, Brooke's voice came out as a strangled whisper, barely audible over the party noise around us. $3.2 million, I corrected quietly, because again, accuracy matters. Though these are estimates. Market fluctuations could change the exact figure. My mother's champagne flute slipped from her fingers, joining the earlier casualty on the marble floor. This time, she didn't even notice the sound of crystal shattering. She was too busy staring at me like I was a stranger. "You're a multimillionaire," she said, and it sounded like an accusation. "On paper," I said, downplaying it because that's what you do when you're uncomfortable. "Most of it's invested or in real estate equity." And then, because the universe has a sense of humor, Dr. Elizabeth Park, one of James's colleagues, someone I'd worked with on a research collaboration, approached our family cluster with a warm, genuine smile that had no idea what she was walking into. "Sophia! I didn't know you'd be here. Congratulations on the FDA breakthrough designation. That's incredible news." "Thank you, Elizabeth," I said, grateful for the interruption and also dreading where this was about to go. "We're very excited about the potential." "FDA breakthrough?" my father said faintly, and I swear to God he looked like he might pass out. "The FDA granted our pancreatic cancer drug breakthrough therapy designation 3 weeks ago," I explained, slipping into scientist mode because that was easier than dealing with the emotional chaos. "It fast-tracks the approval process. If everything goes well, we could have approval within 18 months instead of the usual 4 years. Elizabeth beamed at me with genuine pride. "Sophia's work is going to save countless lives. She's brilliant." "Are you coming to the conference in Geneva next month?" she asked, and I saw my parents' faces and knew this was about to get worse. "I'll be presenting our Phase 3 preliminary data," I confirmed. "Presenting at a conference in Geneva," my mother repeated mechanically, her voice hollow. "The International Oncology Research Symposium," I said. "I'm giving the keynote address on novel drug delivery mechanisms. It's a fairly significant honor in the field." "Fairly significant?" James scoffed. "Sophia's the youngest keynote speaker in the symposium's 40-year history. It's a huge deal." Brooke's voice turned bitter then, sharp and cutting. "So you're just famous? Is that what this is?" "I'm not famous," I said firmly. "I'm respected in my field. There's a difference. Your research has been cited over 4,000 times," Elizabeth pointed out, because apparently we were just piling on now. You've published 37 peer-reviewed papers. You've revolutionized oncology drug delivery. That's more than respect, Sophia. That's recognition of genuine brilliance. The praise felt uncomfortable, but I appreciated Elizabeth's support even as I watched my family implode around me. My parents looked shell-shocked, like bomb survivors. Brooke looked like she was going to vomit, her face green, her perfect party composure completely shattered. "I need some air," Brooke said suddenly, pushing through the crowd toward the balcony like she was escaping a fire. Her fiancé hesitated, looking between Brooke and our family group, clearly confused about what had just happened, then followed her out. My mother started to go after them, maternal instinct kicking in even now, but my father held her back with a hand on her arm. "Let them go, Patricia," he said quietly, his voice rough. "We need to talk to Sophia." "What's there to talk about?" I asked, and I heard the edge in my own voice now, the years of hurt finally surfacing. "Uncle James mentioned my house. You didn't know I had one. Now you do. That's the whole conversation." "It's not," my mother said, and tears were streaming down her face now, mascara running in black rivers. "How can you have achieved all of this and we didn't know? How is that possible?" And there it was. The question that had been 8 years in the making. The moment where everything I'd been holding back could finally come out. "Because you never asked," I said simply, and the truth of it hung in the air between us like smoke. "Because every conversation about my life got redirected to Brooke. Because you assumed that since I wasn't posting on social media or seeking attention, I must not have anything worth sharing. But here's what they didn't know yet, what they couldn't possibly understand: this wasn't just about a house or money or professional success. This was about 8 years of calculated invisibility, 8 years of being erased from my own family's story while I quietly built an empire they couldn't even comprehend. And the worst part? The part that was about to destroy them? I'd stopped needing their approval 4 years ago. I'd stopped wanting their attention. I'd built my entire extraordinary life without them. And now they were about to realize exactly what they'd lost by never bothering to look." James nodded slowly, and I could see he'd been waiting for this moment, waiting for someone to finally say out loud what he'd been watching for years. "I've been watching it happen," he said, his voice calm but cutting. "Every phone call. Every family gathering. Every holiday. It's always the Brooke show. Brooke's job. Brooke's boyfriend. Brooke's engagement. Sophia could literally cure cancer and you'd interrupt to ask if Brooke wanted dessert. That's not fair, my father said, but his voice lacked conviction, lacked force, because somewhere deep down he knew it was absolutely fair. Isn't it? James challenged, and now his voice had an edge I'd rarely heard from him. When was the last time you asked Sophia about her research? About her home? About her life? When was the last time you treated her like she might have something worth celebrating? The silence that followed was damning. Absolutely damning. My father looked away, unable to meet James's eyes. My mother sobbed openly now, no longer trying to maintain her composure, her carefully constructed party face crumbling completely. And I realized something in that moment. They didn't have an answer because there was no answer. They couldn't remember the last time because it had been so long ago, buried under so many years of Brooke-focused conversations, that it might as well have never happened. I can tell you exactly when, I said quietly, and my voice was steady, but there was something cold in it now, something that had calcified over years of being overlooked. You asked about my research 6 years ago at Thanksgiving. I started explaining my work on nanoparticle drug delivery systems and you interrupted after 2 minutes to ask Brooke about her new apartment. You haven't asked since. The specificity of that memory, the exact holiday, the exact topic, the exact moment of interruption, seemed to break something fundamental in my mother. She made a sound that wasn't quite a sob, wasn't quite a gasp, something raw and wounded that came from deep in her chest. I'm sorry, she whispered, and her voice was so broken it was almost unrecognizable. I'm so sorry, Sophia. For what? I asked, and I genuinely wanted to know. For what specifically are you sorry? For not listening, she said, tears streaming freely now, ruining her makeup completely. For not caring. For spending 8 years treating you like you were less important than Brooke. For being a terrible mother. We love you both equally, my father insisted, but even as he said it, even as the words came out of his mouth, I could see him doubting them, questioning whether they were true. Do you? I asked, and this was the question that mattered, the one that cut to the bone. Can you tell me what company I work for? What my job title is? What disease I research? Where I live? Anything about my actual life? The silence that followed stretched so long it became painful. My father's jaw worked like he was chewing on words he couldn't quite form. My mother's tears fell onto her expensive dress, leaving dark spots on the silk. Neither of them could answer. Neither of them knew. Helix Pharmaceuticals, James provided, his voice quiet but firm. Director of Oncology Research. Pancreatic Cancer. 2847, Sterling Heights Drive. Sophia oversees breakthrough drug development that could save thousands of lives annually. She's revolutionizing how we deliver chemotherapy drugs to tumors. She's on track for awards you've never heard of and wouldn't understand if I explained them. We should have known all that, my mother said, and there was something desperate in her voice now, desperate and pleading. Yes, I agreed simply. You should have. My father's voice came out rough, scraped raw. What do you want from us, Sophia? What can we do to fix this? And here's where I surprised myself, because the answer that came out of my mouth wasn't one I'd planned, wasn't one I'd rehearsed. It was just the truth, pure and simple and devastating. Nothing, I said, and I realized as I said it that it was completely true. I wanted you to be proud of me. I wanted you to be interested in my work. I wanted you to see me as something other than Brooke's less impressive younger sister. But I stopped wanting that about 4 years ago when I finally accepted it wasn't going to happen. It can happen now, my mother pleaded, reaching toward me like she wanted to grab my hand. We can change. We can be better. We can it? I interrupted, and my voice was sharper now, harder. Or do you just want access to your millionaire daughter? Do you want to know me, or do you want to brag about me now that you can't pretend I'm the disappointing child anymore? The accusation landed like a physical blow. My mother flinched backward. My father looked like I'd struck him. We never thought you were disappointing, my father said, but the words rang hollow. You just thought I was less impressive than Brooke, I corrected, my tone clinical now, analytical. Less successful. Less worthy of your time and attention. Less interesting. Less everything. You were wrong. You were catastrophically, embarrassingly wrong. But you didn't know you were wrong because you never bothered to look. Let me explain something to you about being the overlooked child, because I need you to understand the full weight of what my parents had done. It's not just about missing achievements or forgetting to ask questions. It's about the slow, grinding erosion of your sense of worth within your own family. It's about learning that your accomplishments don't matter unless they're witnessed, and your family has chosen not to witness you. It's about standing in a room full of people who share your DNA and realizing you could disappear entirely and it would take them weeks to notice. I'd bought a house, a $1.2 million house, and they thought I rented an apartment. I'd paid off a mortgage in 2 years and they thought I might be unemployed. I'd become the director of a major research department and they didn't know what company I worked for. I'd published 37 papers that were revolutionizing cancer treatment and they'd never asked to read a single one. I'd been featured in Nature Medicine, one of the most prestigious journals in medical science, and they didn't even know what Nature Medicine was. I'd been invited to give a keynote address at an international symposium, the youngest speaker in 40 years, and they were learning about it from a colleague at my sister's engagement party. Every single milestone of my adult life, every achievement, every success, every breakthrough, had happened in complete silence as far as my family was concerned. While they were celebrating Brooke getting a promotion to senior marketing manager, I was curing cancer. While they were throwing parties for Brooke's new apartment, I was building a real estate portfolio worth millions. While they were obsessing over Brooke's dating life, I was becoming one of the most respected researchers in my field. And they had no idea. Not because I'd hidden it. Not because I'd been secretive or deceptive. But because they'd never asked. Because they'd never cared enough to ask. James placed a hand on my shoulder, steady and supportive. "Sophia, maybe we should." "I'm leaving," I said, cutting him off gently. "This is Brooke's night. Her engagement party. I shouldn't have come in the first place, and I definitely shouldn't be the reason it's falling apart." "Sophia, please," my mother said, and she was reaching for me again, her hands trembling. "Please don't leave like this. We need to talk. We need to figure this out." I stepped back, out of reach, maintaining the physical distance that matched the emotional distance that had existed for years. "Enjoy the party," I said, my voice calm and even. "Celebrate Brooke's engagement. It's what you're good at." I turned and walked toward the exit, my heels clicking against the marble floor in a steady rhythm that felt like a countdown. Behind me, I heard my mother call my name, "Sophia. Sophia, please." But I didn't turn around. I didn't stop. I didn't give them the scene they wanted, the emotional breakdown that would let them feel like they were fixing something. Because here's what they didn't understand: you can't fix 8 years of neglect with one conversation at a party. You can't repair that kind of damage with apologies that only come after you discover your daughter is worth more than you thought. You can't love someone retroactively just because you finally noticed they were worth loving. Uncle James caught up with me in the lobby, away from the party noise, away from the crowd. "You okay?" he asked quietly. "I think so," I said, and I was surprised to find it was true. "That was harder than I expected, but I think I'm okay." "You are perfect," he said firmly. Calm, dignified, truthful. "You said everything they needed to hear, even if they didn't want to hear it." "They're going to call," I said, already knowing what was coming next. "Tonight, tomorrow, probably every day for the next week. They're going to want to fix this. They're going to want me to make them feel better about being terrible parents." "Maybe," James agreed. "Probably. But listen to me, Sophia, you don't owe them an easy reconciliation. You don't owe them anything. You've spent 8 years trying to be seen, trying to be valued, trying to matter to them. If they want a relationship with you now, they need to earn it. They need to do the work. What if they can't?" I asked, and I heard the vulnerability in my own voice, the part of me that was still that little girl who wanted her parents to be proud of her. What if they try and fail? What if this is just who they are and they can't change? "Then you'll be fine," he said, and his voice was firm, certain, unshakable. "You have an incredible career. You have financial security. You have meaningful work that's literally saving lives. You have people who actually see you and appreciate you for who you are. You don't need parents who only started valuing you when they learned your net worth." He was right. Logically, rationally, I knew he was absolutely right. But it still ached. It still hurt in that deep place where childhood wounds live, where the need for parental approval never quite dies no matter how successful you become. "Thank you," I said, hugging him tight. "For seeing me. For staying connected. For being proud of me when they weren't." "Always," he said, hugging me back. "You're the most accomplished person in this family, Sophia, and that includes me. Don't let their blindness make you doubt that for even a second." I drove home to Sterling Heights, to my 5-bedroom Craftsman with its mountain views and custom finishes, to the life I'd built with my own brilliance, my own dedication, my own relentless work ethic. The drive took 40 minutes through darkened streets, and I spent the entire time processing what had just happened, what had just exploded in the middle of that ballroom. Inside, everything was exactly as I'd left it. The home office where I reviewed research data and wrote papers that were advancing medical science. The library filled with medical journals and oncology textbooks, first editions of groundbreaking research, signed copies from colleagues who respected my work. The guest suite where Uncle James stayed during his visits, decorated specifically for his comfort because he was the one family member who'd earned that consideration. The master suite with its spa bathroom and walk-in closet, every detail chosen by me, paid for by me, reflecting my taste and my success. Every room represented a choice I'd made, a goal I'd achieved, a dream I'd realized without anyone's help. Not for my parents' approval. Not for recognition from people who should have loved me unconditionally. Just because this was the life I wanted, the life I'd worked for, the life I deserved. My phone started ringing before I'd even taken off my heels. My mother's name flashing on the screen, insistent, demanding. I let it go to voicemail. Then my father called. Voicemail. Then my mother again. Voicemail. A text from Brooke appeared. You couldn't let me have one night. You had to make it about you. You're so selfish. I stared at that text for a long moment, feeling anger rise up hot and sharp in my chest. Selfish. She was calling me selfish. I hadn't mentioned the house. I hadn't brought up my career. I hadn't volunteered any information about my success. Uncle James had asked me a question and I'd answered it honestly, and somehow that made me the villain in Brooke's story. I set the phone down without responding and walked through my house, room by room, really looking at what I'd built. The kitchen where I'd hosted dinner parties my parents had never attended, colleagues from work, friends from my PhD program, people who actually cared about my life. The backyard with its vegetable garden where I grew produce for the local food bank because having money meant I could afford to give back to my community. The basement I'd converted into a home gym and meditation space because taking care of my physical and mental health mattered. The home theater where I'd watched research presentations and TED Talks and documentaries about scientific breakthroughs. Every square foot of this house represented not just financial success but intentional living. Every choice was mine. Every detail reflected my values. And I'd done it all without them. Without their support, without their encouragement, without their knowledge. The anger I'd expected to feel, the rage, the bitterness, the resentment, didn't come. Or maybe it had been there for so long I'd stopped noticing it, stopped letting it consume me. What came instead was something cleaner, colder, more liberating. It was clarity. Pure, crystalline clarity. I'd built something extraordinary. Not just the house, not just the career, not just the financial portfolio. I'd built a life of meaning and impact. I was revolutionizing cancer treatment. I was on track for achievements my parents couldn't even comprehend, wouldn't understand even if I spent hours explaining them. I'd done it without their knowledge, without their support, without their approval. Which meant I didn't actually need those things to succeed. I never had. Tomorrow, there would be more calls. More text messages. More attempts at reconciliation that were really just attempts to make themselves feel better about their failures as parents. They'd want me to absolve them, to tell them it was okay, to pretend that 8 years of neglect could be erased with a few apologies and some sudden interest in my life. But tonight I stood in my $1.5 million house, surrounded by 8 years of quiet, deliberate achievement, and let myself feel the full weight of what I'd accomplished. I let myself feel proud. Not in a boastful way, not in an arrogant way, but in that deep, satisfied way that comes from knowing you've done something difficult and done it well. I'd become someone extraordinary while my family wasn't watching. I'd built an empire while they were focused on someone else's engagement ring. I'd changed the world, actually, literally changed the trajectory of cancer treatment, while they were asking me if I was sure I could afford my rent. And here's the thing that my parents didn't understand, the thing that was going to haunt them: I didn't need them to see me anymore. That need had died somewhere around year 4, had withered and fallen away like dead leaves. I didn't need their approval or their pride or their sudden interest now that I was worth noticing. I'd learned to validate myself. I'd learned to be proud of my own achievements without external recognition. I'd learned that the people who truly matter, the colleagues who respect my research, the patients whose lives my work will save, the uncle who flew across the country just to check on me, those people saw me. Those people valued me. And that was enough. But what I didn't know, what I couldn't possibly anticipate as I stood in my beautiful home feeling that cold clarity settle over me, was that my parents' sudden interest in my life wasn't just about pride or guilt or a belated realization of what they'd missed. There was something else happening, something I'd find out about in the next 24 hours when the phone calls became more desperate, when the apologies started sounding less like remorse and more like strategy. Because my parents weren't just realizing they'd ignored a successful daughter. They were realizing they'd ignored a daughter who could solve problems they desperately needed solved. And that realization was about to make everything so much worse. The calls started at 7 the next morning. Not just 1 or 2 apologetic messages. 23 missed calls before I even woke up. 17 voicemails. 41 text messages. My phone was vibrating so continuously on my nightstand that I thought there was an emergency, thought maybe someone had died or the house was on fire or something genuinely catastrophic had happened. I grabbed it with my heart racing, preparing for disaster, and saw the names, Mom, Dad, Brooke, Mom, Dad, Mom. Over and over like a broken record, like they'd taken shifts through the night to make sure my phone never stopped buzzing. The voicemails were intense. My mother's voice, raw from crying, begging me to call back. My father trying to sound measured and failing, his voice cracking halfway through explanations that didn't explain anything. Brooke oscillating between apologetic and accusatory, like she couldn't decide whether to grovel or attack. But it was the text messages that made me pause. Because buried in all the please forgive us and we were terrible parents and we want to make this right messages was something else. Something that made my researcher brain, the part of me trained to spot patterns and anomalies in data, start paying very close attention. From my mother, 3:47 a.m., Sophia, we really need to talk about something important. Family matter. Urgent. From my father, 4:23 a.m., call me as soon as you can. There's a situation we need to discuss. You might be able to help. From Brooke, 5:15 a.m., okay, I'm sorry about the selfish comment, but seriously we have a problem and you're literally the only one who might have a solution. I sat up in bed, my expensive Egyptian cotton sheets pulling around my waist, and felt something cold settle in my stomach. This wasn't just about apologizing for 8 years of neglect. This was something else. Something that smelled like desperation with a purpose. I didn't call back immediately. Instead, I made coffee in my chef's kitchen with its marble countertops and professional-grade espresso machine, took a shower in my spa bathroom, got dressed in comfortable clothes, and let them wait. Let them feel what it was like when someone they needed didn't respond immediately, didn't drop everything to accommodate their timeline. It was petty. I knew it was petty. I did it anyway. By 10 a.m., my phone rang again. Uncle James this time. I answered. Your parents called me 6 times this morning, he said without preamble. They're frantic. What's going on? I don't know, I said honestly. But based on the messages, it's not just about last night. There's something else. Something they need from me. There was a long pause on James's end. Then, quietly, Sophia, be very careful. People who ignored you for 8 years suddenly becoming desperate to reconnect? That's not love. That's need. And need makes people manipulative in ways love never does. His words hit harder than they should have. You think they want something from me. I think they've always wanted something from you, he said. They just didn't know you had anything valuable to offer until last night. Now they know. And whatever situation they're dealing with, they've realized you might be their solution. I thanked him, hung up, and stared at my phone for a long moment. Then I called my mother back. She answered before the first ring finished. Sophia! Oh my God, Sophia, thank you for calling back. I've been so worried. I didn't sleep at all last night. Your father and we've been talking and crying, and we realize how terrible we've been to you, how we've failed as parents, what do you need?" I interrupted, my voice calm and clinical. The kind of voice I use in lab meetings when someone's trying to hide bad experimental results behind verbose explanations. The sudden silence on the other end told me everything. What? My mother stammered. "You sent me 50 messages between midnight and dawn," I said. Several of them mentioned an urgent situation, a problem I might be able to help with. "So let's skip the part where you apologize for 8 years of neglect. We can circle back to that later, and get to what you actually need from me right now." Another long silence. Then my mother's voice, smaller now, stripped of the emotional manipulation, "We need to meet in person. All of us. This isn't a phone conversation." "Is someone dying?" I asked bluntly. "No." "Is someone in legal trouble?" "Not exactly." "Then you can tell me over the phone, or you can wait until I decide I want to meet in person. Which might be today, might be next week, might be never. Your choice." I heard muffled conversation on her end, my father's voice in the background. Then my mother came back on the line, and her voice had changed. Less pleading, more desperate. "It's Brooke. She's in financial trouble. Serious trouble. And we can't help her. We don't have the resources. But you do." And there it was. The real reason for the overnight panic. The real reason for 50 messages and 23 phone calls. Not because they'd realized what a terrible mistake they'd made. Not because they genuinely wanted to rebuild our relationship. But because their golden child was in trouble and they needed their ignored daughter's money to fix it. "How much trouble?" I asked, my voice colder now. "She owes $380,000, my mother said, the words tumbling out in a rush now that the truth was exposed. To private lenders. High-interest loans. She took them out to maintain her lifestyle, to keep up appearances, and now they're calling them due. She has 60 days to pay or they're going to sue her, and if she declares bankruptcy it'll destroy her career in marketing. Everything she's worked for, gone." I let that information settle. Took a sip of my coffee. Watched the morning light filter through my kitchen windows onto countertops that cost more than most people's cars. "So let me understand this correctly," I said slowly. "Brooke took out nearly $400,000 in private loans to fund a lifestyle she couldn't afford. Now those loans are due. You and Dad can't help because you've been funding your own lifestyle beyond your means. And you want me, the daughter you ignored for 8 years, the one you thought rented a small apartment, the one whose accomplishments you never celebrated, to write a check to bail out the child you actually paid attention to. When you say it like that, it sounds terrible," my mother said, and I could hear tears in her voice again. "It is terrible," I agreed. "It's spectacularly terrible." "Continue." "Sophia, please. She's your sister. She made mistakes, yes, but she's family. We're family. And family helps family when they're in trouble." "Family," I repeated, and I let the word hang there for a moment. "Tell me, Mom, when I bought my house 8 years ago and you thought I was being financially irresponsible, was that family helping family? When I paid off my mortgage and you asked if I'd been fired, was that family supporting family? When I became director of my department and you never asked about it, was that family celebrating family?" "That's not fair," my mother said, but her voice was weak. "You're right," I said. "It's not fair. None of this is fair. But let me make sure I understand the full picture before I make any decisions. How much do you know about Brooke's situation? The actual details?" More muffled conversation in the background. Then my father's voice came on the line. "Sophia, it's Dad. Your mother's too emotional to explain properly. Here are the facts. Brooke took out personal loans over the past 4 years totaling $380,000. She used them to fund her lifestyle, the apartment in the expensive neighborhood, the car, the clothes, the social life she needed to maintain her position in marketing. The interest rates were high but manageable when she thought she'd be making more money by now. But her career hasn't advanced as fast as she expected. The loans are being called due simultaneously because they're all from the same lending group. If she defaults, they'll garnish her wages, destroy her credit, and potentially sue her. In marketing, that kind of financial instability could cost her her job. So to be clear, I said, she borrowed nearly $400,000 to look successful instead of actually being successful, bet on future earnings that didn't materialize, and now she's facing the consequences of living beyond her means. Sophia, don't be cruel, my father said. I'm not being cruel. I'm being accurate. There's a difference. I took another sip of coffee, let them sit in the uncomfortable silence. How much can you and Mom contribute? We've already mortgaged our retirement, my father admitted. We can maybe come up with $50,000. But that leaves $330,000 that we simply don't have access to without destroying our own financial stability. And here's where I should probably tell you what I was feeling in that moment, because I need you to understand the complexity of it. Part of me, a large part, wanted to tell them to go to hell. Wanted to explain in excruciating detail how their golden child had built a house of cards while I'd built an actual empire, and it wasn't my job to prevent her collapse. Wanted to point out that they'd never once offered to help me, never asked if I needed anything, never showed interest in my financial well-being until they needed my money. But another part of me, the part that was still, despite everything, their daughter, felt that automatic pull toward family obligation. That voice that says blood is blood, that says you help your sister when she's drowning even if she never would have helped you. I need to think about this, I said finally. I need to understand the full situation, review documents, see exactly what she owes and to whom. I'm not making a decision based on a panicked phone call. We don't have a lot of time, my father pressed. 60 days before they take legal action. Then you should have called me on day 1 instead of day 50-something, I said coldly. Send me all the documentation. Loan agreements, payment schedules, correspondence with lenders. Everything. I'll review it and let you know my decision. When, my mother asked desperately. When I'm ready. Could be today. Could be next week. Could be never. Sophia, please, I hung up. Just ended the call mid-plea because I was done, absolutely done, being guilt and manipulated by people who'd spent 8 years treating me like I didn't matter. My phone rang again immediately. I declined the call. It rang again. Declined. Text messages started flooding in. I muted the conversation. And then I did what I always do when I need to think clearly. I went to my home office, surrounded myself with the evidence of my actual achievements, the framed patents on the wall, the publications with my name in bold, the awards from conferences and institutions, and I thought about what I actually wanted to do. Here's the thing about having money, people assume it makes you powerful. And in some ways it does. But what it really does is make you a target for everyone who doesn't have money but feels entitled to yours. Suddenly everyone's problems become your responsibility to solve because you have the resources. Suddenly your success becomes a family asset that everyone gets to make withdrawals from. I thought about Brooke at that engagement party, displaying her ring for hours, basking in attention from parents who'd given her a lifetime of it. I thought about how she'd texted me that I was selfish for letting Uncle James mention my house, like existing visibly was somehow stealing her spotlight. I thought about $380,000 in loans taken out to maintain appearances, to look successful instead of being successful, to fund a lifestyle built entirely on future earnings that never materialized. And I thought about what would actually happen if I bailed her out. Would she learn anything? Would my parents suddenly see me as a person instead of an ATM? Would this fix our family dynamics or just establish a new pattern where I was the emergency fund for everyone else's poor decisions? The documents arrived via email around noon. My father, ever the organized one, had scanned everything. Loan agreements, payment schedules, late notices, letters from the lending group's legal department. I spent 3 hours going through them with the same analytical attention I'd give to clinical trial data, and what I found was worse than I expected. These weren't just lifestyle loans. Brooke had taken out money to invest in a friend's failed startup. She'd co-signed on a lease for an ex-boyfriend who'd disappeared. She'd borrowed money to pay back earlier loans, creating a debt spiral that was always going to end in disaster. And woven through all of it was evidence that my parents had known. They'd co-signed on 2 of the loans. They'd encouraged her to invest in herself and maintain her image and fake it till you make it. They'd been complicit in building this financial house of cards. My phone rang. Uncle James again. They called you, I said instead of hello. They called me, he confirmed. Wanted me to convince you to help Brooke. Wanted me to explain that family sticks together. I told them I'd talk to you, but I want to know what you're actually thinking. I'm thinking that Brooke is 30 years old and spent 4 years living a life funded by borrowed money. I'm thinking my parents enabled it, encouraged it, and are now panicking because the bill came due. I'm thinking if I pay this off, nothing changes. They learn that Sophia exists as a bailout plan, not as a daughter. You're not wrong, James said carefully. But she is your sister. And despite everything, I know you. You're going to struggle with this because you have a conscience and they don't. He was right. God, he was right. I sat there in my home office, surrounded by evidence of my success, and felt the weight of a decision I never should have had to make. Do I let my sister face the consequences of her choices? Do I teach my parents that ignoring me for 8 years means losing access to my resources when they need them? Or do I take the high road, write a check that means nothing to my net worth but everything to their immediate crisis, and risk establishing myself as the family safety net? What would you do? I asked James. Honestly? Honestly. I'd make them work for it, he said. I'd tell them that if they want your help, they need to earn it. Not with apologies. Not with promises to be better. With action. With accountability. With a genuine reckoning of what they've done to you. And that's when I knew what I was going to do. I called my mother back. She answered on the first ring again, hope evident in her voice. Sophia? Did you review the documents? Will you help? I reviewed everything, I said calmly. And I have conditions. Non-negotiable conditions. If you want my help with Brooke's situation, you're going to meet them. All of them. No negotiation, no compromise, no we'll try our best. Yes or no. The silence on the other end was electric with tension. What conditions? My father's voice came through. They had me on speaker. First, I said, family therapy. All of us. Professional, consistent, not some token 3 sessions and then we're done. Real work on family dynamics. I pick the therapist, we go weekly, and you show up with genuine effort to understand what you've done. Okay, my mother said quickly. Second, Brooke doesn't just get a check. If I'm paying off her debt, she's going into financial counseling, creating a budget, and living within her means. I'm not funding another 4 years of pretending to be someone she's not. That's reasonable, my father said. Third, I continued, and this was the one that mattered most, you tell people the truth. Every person you've bragged to about Brooke's engagement, every friend who thinks I'm the disappointing daughter, every family member who believes Brooke is the successful one, you tell them the truth about what I've accomplished. About my career, my house, my research. You don't get to take my money and keep me invisible. The silence that followed was longer this time. Heavier. Because this was the condition that cost them something beyond money. This was the one that required them to admit they'd been wrong, publicly, to everyone who mattered in their social circle. Sophia, my mother said carefully, that feels like you're asking us to humiliate Brooke. No, I corrected sharply. I'm asking you to stop humiliating me. There's a difference. Telling the truth about my success doesn't diminish Brooke. It just stops elevating her at my expense. But here's what I didn't tell them in that moment, what I was keeping in reserve, what they were about to discover would make this decision even more complicated. I'd already made up my mind about whether to help Brooke. The conditions weren't about getting my money. They were about finding out whether my parents actually wanted a relationship with me, or whether they just wanted access to my resources. And the answer, the one that would come in the next 24 hours when they had to choose between their pride and their desperation, was going to tell me everything I needed to know about whether this family could be salvaged or whether I was better off walking away from all of them forever. They took 18 hours to respond to my conditions. 18 hours of silence that told me everything about how seriously they were debating whether maintaining their image was worth admitting the truth about their failures. 18 hours where I went to work, ran my department, reviewed Phase 3 trial data that could save thousands of lives, and reminded myself that I had built an entire existence that didn't need their approval. When my father finally called back, it was 8 p.m. on a Tuesday. I was in my home office, reviewing a grant proposal, and I almost didn't answer. Almost let it go to voicemail like I'd done dozens of times over the past day and a half. But something made me pick up. Curiosity, maybe. Or that last thread of hope that maybe, just maybe, they'd surprise me. We accept your conditions, my father said, his voice formal, stiff, like he was signing a business contract he didn't fully agree with. All of them. Just like that? I asked, skeptical. Just like that. Put Mom on, I said. I want to hear it from her too. There was rustling, then my mother's voice, and she sounded tired in a way I'd never heard before. Worn down. Defeated. We accept, Sophia. The therapy, the financial counseling for Brooke, telling people the truth about your success. All of it. We'll do whatever you ask. And Brooke? I pressed. Does she know about these conditions? Does she agree? Another pause. Longer this time. She's struggling with it, my mother admitted. She feels like you're punishing her for our mistakes. I laughed. Actually laughed out loud, sharp and bitter. I'm not punishing her. I'm refusing to enable her. There's a massive difference. If she can't accept basic financial responsibility as a condition of receiving $330,000, then she doesn't actually want help. She wants a bailout with no accountability. She'll agree, my father said firmly. We'll make sure she understands this is the only option. Don't make her understand, I said coldly. Let her decide. If she genuinely wants help, she'll accept the conditions. If she just wants money to continue living beyond her means, she'll refuse. Either way, I'll have my answer about whether this family can actually change. I hung up before they could respond, before they could try to negotiate or soften the terms or make promises they wouldn't keep. And then I waited. The answer came the next morning. Not from my parents. From Brooke directly. She showed up at my house, at the house she hadn't known I owned until 3 days ago, at 7 a.m. I watched her through my security camera, standing on my front porch in designer clothes that were probably purchased with borrowed money, looking small and uncertain in a way I'd never seen her look before. I almost didn't open the door. Almost let her stand there and experience what it felt like to be ignored, to be invisible, to not matter enough for someone to acknowledge your presence. But I'm not my parents. So I opened the door. We stood there for a long moment, sisters separated by 8 years of ignored accomplishments and favored attention, looking at each other like strangers meeting for the first time. This house is beautiful, Brooke said finally, her voice small. I know, I said. Not thank you. Not I'm glad you like it. Just acknowledgement of a fact we both knew was true. Can I come in? She asked. I stepped aside, let her into my entryway with its custom tile work and original art on the walls, watched her look around with eyes that were seeing everything for the first time. The evidence of a life she'd never bothered to ask about. The proof that her younger sister had surpassed her in every measurable way while she was busy being the family favorite. We sat in my living room, on furniture I'd chosen, in a space I'd created, and the silence between us was heavy with 8 years of unspoken resentment and newfound awareness. "I came to tell you that I accept your conditions," Brooke said, her hands twisted together in her lap. "The financial counseling, the budget, all of it. I accept." "Okay," I said neutrally. "But I also came to tell you that I hate this," she continued, and now her voice had an edge to it, that defensive sharpness I recognized from the engagement party. "I hate that you're in a position to dictate terms. I hate that you're making me feel like a failure. I hate that Mom and Dad suddenly think you're so impressive and I'm just a disappointment." And there it was. The real issue. Not the debt, not the financial irresponsibility, not the years of living beyond her means. The fact that the family hierarchy had shifted and she was no longer on top. "I didn't make you feel like a failure," I said quietly. "Your choices did that. I just happened to make different choices that led to different outcomes." "You don't understand what it's like," Brooke said, and tears were starting to form in her eyes now. "You never had the pressure I had. You were always the smart one, the one who just naturally excelled at everything. I had to work for every accomplishment, had to maintain appearances, had to prove I was successful because I didn't have your natural brilliance to fall back on." I stared at her, genuinely stunned. "Are you seriously trying to tell me that being ignored for 8 years was easier than being the center of attention? That having your achievements celebrated constantly was harder than having mine dismissed? You don't know what it's like to be the one everyone expects things from," she shot back. "No," I agreed, my voice hard now. "I know what it's like to be the one everyone expects nothing from. I know what it's like to cure cancer and have your parents ask if you're sure you can afford your rent. I know what it's like to buy a house and have them think you're being irresponsible. I know what it's like to become a director at 30 and have them not know what company you work for. Tell me, Brooke, which one sounds harder?" She didn't answer. Just sat there crying silently, and I felt something shift in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly. Not even sympathy. But something like understanding that we'd both been damaged by our parents' favoritism, just in different ways. She'd been given attention without substance. I'd been given neglect that forced me to build substance on my own. "I'm going to help you," I said finally. "Not because you deserve it. Not because you've earned it. But because you're my sister and I don't want to become the kind of person who watches family members drown when I could throw them a life raft." Brooke looked up, hope and relief flooding her face. "But," I continued firmly, "this is the only time. This is the one bailout. If you take this money and go right back to living beyond your means, if you refuse to actually change your relationship with money and success and appearance, then next time you're drowning, I'm letting you sink. Are we clear?" "We're clear," she whispered. "And one more thing," I said. "You need to understand something fundamental. I didn't build this life to compete with you. I didn't become successful to make you look bad. I did it because this is what I'm capable of when I actually apply myself. Your failure isn't about my success. They're completely separate things." She nodded, wiping tears away with the back of her hand. "I know. Or I'm starting to know. It's just hard to accept that everything I thought about our family, about my place in it, was wrong." "Join the club," I said dryly. "I've been working on accepting that for 4 years." We sat there for a while longer, two sisters trying to figure out how to exist in a reality neither of us had expected, and eventually I walked her through what was going to happen next. I'd pay off her debts directly to the lenders, not give her the money to manage. She'd work with a financial counselor I'd personally vet. She'd move to a more affordable apartment and learn to live on what she actually earned, not what she hoped to earn someday. And she'd be honest, actually, genuinely honest, with our parents about her mistakes, about the pressure that had led to those mistakes, about the ways their favoritism had damaged both of us. When she left, I stood in my doorway watching her walk to her car, a leased BMW she definitely couldn't afford, and felt exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with lack of sleep. The family therapy started 2 weeks later. Dr. Rebecca Martinez, a specialist in family systems and intergenerational trauma, sat in a chair across from the four of us and listened as we tried to explain 8 years of dysfunction in 50-minute increments. It was brutal. More brutal than I expected. My parents cried. Brooke cried. I didn't cry because I'd done my crying 4 years ago when I'd finally accepted they weren't going to change on their own. Dr. Martinez didn't let anyone off easy. She made my parents articulate exactly what they'd done, made them list my accomplishments they'd ignored, made them confront the reality that they'd nearly destroyed their relationship with one daughter while putting impossible pressure on the other. She made Brooke admit that part of her debt spiral was trying to maintain the image our parents had projected onto her, trying to be the successful daughter they'd already decided she was, even when reality didn't match the narrative. She made me admit that part of why I'd hidden my success so completely was because I'd wanted them to come looking, wanted them to notice I was missing, wanted them to prove they actually cared enough to ask. "You built an empire out of spite," Dr. Martinez said to me in our 4th session, and the accuracy of it hit like a punch. "Not entirely spite," I corrected. "But yeah, partially. Partially I wanted to prove I could be successful without them. That I didn't need their attention or approval to build something extraordinary." "And did you prove it?" she asked. "I proved it to myself," I said. "But that's different from them seeing it. Turns out I still wanted them to see it, even after I convinced myself I didn't care." My mother sobbed when I said that. My father looked like I'd gutted him. Brooke reached over and squeezed my hand, and I let her, because we were both casualties of the same broken system. The truth-telling happened gradually. My parents started mentioning my work at dinner parties. Started explaining what a director of oncology research actually does. Started telling people about the house, the patents, the keynote address in Geneva. Some of their friends didn't believe them at first. Thought they were exaggerating or confused about which daughter had accomplished what. My mother had to show them articles, show them my publications, show them proof that their invisible daughter was actually someone extraordinary. One of her closest friends, a woman who'd attended Brooke's engagement party, called me directly to apologize. "Your mother talked about Brooke constantly for years," she said, "and I don't think she mentioned you more than a handful of times. I assumed you weren't. I assumed wrong. I'm sorry." I accepted the apology because what else do you do when someone acknowledges they wrote you off without knowing anything about you? The change in my parents was slow. Painfully slow. They started asking about my work, and I'd answer, and they'd actually listen instead of redirecting to Brooke. They started coming to my house for dinner instead of expecting me to always come to them. They started treating me like an adult whose opinions mattered, whose life was interesting, whose achievements were worth celebrating. But here's the thing about healing from years of neglect: it doesn't happen in therapy sessions or grand gestures. It happens in tiny moments scattered across months. It's my father calling to ask about a clinical trial result because he actually remembered I was running one. It's my mother forwarding me an article about cancer research and saying, "This made me think of you." It's Brooke texting me photos of her new apartment, a modest one-bedroom she could actually afford, and saying, "I'm proud of myself for choosing this." It's Uncle James flying in for one of our family dinners and smiling because finally, I was visible to everyone, not just him. 6 months after that engagement party, we had another family gathering. Smaller this time. Just us. No 200 guests, no champagne fountains, no ring displays. My parents sat at my dining room table, in my house, eating food I'd prepared, and my father raised his glass. "To Sophia," he said, and his voice cracked slightly. "For being extraordinary even when we weren't watching. For building an empire we didn't know existed. For being patient enough to let us try to fix what we broke. And for teaching all of us," my mother added, tears in her eyes again, "that real success isn't about appearances or attention. It's about substance. About impact." About becoming someone worth knowing even when no one's watching. I clinked my glass against theirs and Brooke's and felt something in my chest that might have been healing. Might have been forgiveness. Might have been the beginning of something that actually looked like family. I didn't do it to teach you anything, I said honestly. I did it because this is who I am. But I'm glad you finally decided to notice. 3 months after that, my drug got FDA approval. Breakthrough therapy for pancreatic cancer. The culmination of 8 years of research that happened in parallel to 8 years of family dysfunction. The press conference was covered by major news outlets. My parents were there, in the audience, watching their daughter announce something that would save thousands of lives. And afterward, when reporters asked me what motivated my research, what drove me to spend nearly a decade solving one of medicine's hardest problems, I told them the truth. I wanted to do work that mattered, I said. Work that would make a difference whether anyone was paying attention or not. Because the value of what you do isn't determined by who notices. It's determined by the impact it has on the world. My mother told me later that she cried through that entire answer, understanding finally what she'd missed, what she'd almost lost by not paying attention. So here's what I need you to understand, what I need you to really hear: being overlooked doesn't mean you're unworthy. Being ignored doesn't define your value. Your parents' inability to see you says everything about their limitations and nothing about your worth. I built a $3.2 million net worth while my family thought I rented a small apartment. I revolutionized cancer treatment while they focused on someone else's engagement ring. I became someone extraordinary not because of their attention but in spite of its absence. And when they finally saw me, when they finally understood what they'd been missing for 8 years, it wasn't my responsibility to make them feel better about their failure. It was their responsibility to earn their way back into my life. Some of you watching this are living my story right now. You're the overlooked child, the invisible sibling, the one whose accomplishments get dismissed or redirected. You're building something extraordinary while your family celebrates someone else's ordinary. And you're wondering if it's worth it. If success matters when the people who should care most don't even notice. I'm here to tell you it matters. It matters desperately. Not because they'll eventually see it, they might not, and you have to be prepared for that possibility. But because you'll know. Because you'll build something so undeniable that even if they never acknowledge it, you'll stand in the empire you created and know with absolute certainty that you did this. You proved that their neglect couldn't break you. That their favoritism couldn't diminish you. That their blindness couldn't stop you from becoming exactly who you were meant to be. My parents learned to see me. Brooke learned to stand on her own. Our family is healing, slowly, imperfectly, but genuinely. But here's the critical part: I didn't need them to heal to be whole. I was already whole. Already successful. Already extraordinary. Their recognition was nice, but it wasn't necessary. Because I'd learned the hardest lesson anyone can learn: the only approval you truly need is your own. Build your empire. Cure your cancer. Buy your house. Earn your patents. Do it quietly if you want, or loudly if that's your style. Do it whether anyone's watching or not. Do it because you can, because you're capable of extraordinary things, because the world needs what only you can build. And if your family finally notices? Great. You can decide if they've earned their way back in. But if they don't? If they spend your whole life focused on someone else while you're changing the world? That's their loss. Their tragedy. Their failure. Not yours. Never yours. You are not invisible. You're just surrounded by people who aren't looking. And someday, whether it's at an engagement party or a press conference or in their own quiet moment of reckoning, they're going to realize what they missed. They're going to understand that while they were celebrating small things, you were building something that actually mattered. And that realization, that devastating understanding of what they could have witnessed if they'd just bothered to look, that's not revenge. That's just the natural consequence of refusing to see someone extraordinary standing right in front of you. So keep building. Keep achieving. Keep becoming more than they ever imagined you could be. Not to prove them wrong, although that's a nice bonus. But because you deserve to live in the empire you're capable of creating. Because your work matters. Because you matter. Whether they ever figure that out or not. Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.